If you're a man who's ever questioned your own sanity after being with a woman who seemed absolutely perfect at first, but then became your worst nightmare, if you've ever found yourself obsessively replaying conversations, wondering if any of it was even real, if you feel like you're losing your mind because one moment you were the love of her life and the next you're being attacked, demeaned, or discarded, if so, I want you to know that you're not crazy, you're not weak, you're not stupid, and you're definitely not alone. I'm Lise Leblanc. I'm a therapist, author, and life coach. And in this video, I'm going to explain why everything you've been told about getting over a narcissistic partner is probably actually making your situation worse. And at the end of this video, I am going to give you 7 tips to rebalance your brain chemistry. So I want you to know what you experience isn't about incompatibility or communication issues. You were caught in something called a trauma bond, which is a neurological addiction that hijacks your brain's reward systems, creating a powerful, often irrational pull towards someone who is harming you psychologically and in many other ways as well. But here's the part that no one tells you. The trauma bond doesn't just disappear when the relationship ends. In fact, it often gets stronger. And this explains why you can't stop thinking about her, why everything reminds you of her. And that's why you feel so empty and lost, even though you rationally know that you're way better off without her. Now, maybe you're at such a low point right now that you don't believe that you can get out of this toxic entanglement and out of this downward spiral. But I have worked with thousands of men from around the world, and I think I've seen almost every manipulation tactic in the book and every stage of recovery. And I've realized that men who get involved with female narcissists face unique challenges that almost no one is talking about. People will tell you to man up and move on. Your friends won't understand why you can't just forget her. They'll tell you to just go sleep with someone else, just have fun. Even therapists can sometimes miss the full complexity of what you're dealing with. And this can happen for a few different reasons. They might not have a deep understanding of personality disorders. They may be trained primarily to recognize abuse patterns in situations where the man is the abuser. Or they might be viewing your experience through the lens of what's normal or balanced and reciprocal in relationships. I remember one client, we'll call him Steven, and he came to me completely broken. He was a successful engineer, respected in his field, confident in all areas of his life except his marriage. And he'd just been discarded by his narcissistic wife after 20 years of psychological manipulation and abuse. As always, things started out magical. He thought he'd found the love of his life. And by the time her affection and warmth turned to ice and she became condescending, he was already so invested that he couldn't stand up for himself. And over the course of the relationship, he tried everything, being more patient, pulling back, fighting harder, saying less, saying more. And he spent most of the relationship chasing that initial version of her that he'd fallen in love with. And sometimes she'd go back to being sweet and affectionate. And those moments of kindness pulled him back in. And it's this push-pull that not only strengthens the trauma bond, but it weakens and exhausts you until you look in the mirror and you don't even recognize the guy staring back at you. You feel like an emotional wreck, like you're going insane, embarrassed that you're in this situation, putting up with such disrespect, and yet you can't let go. When she eventually did leave, Stephen told me that he felt relieved at first. He didn't have to deal with the constant complaints, criticism, and control. But then the withdrawal symptoms set in. He felt anxious and found himself obsessing over her, replaying every conversation, interactions, questioning everything, wondering, was any of it real? And Stephen's story is the story of many men that I've worked with, intelligent, successful men who are kind and get caught up in a trap that no one prepared them for. And the reason that you can't just get over this person in this relationship is because of the intermittent reinforcement that forms this powerful psychological addiction. And it's neurological. And even after you hate the drug, after you see how much damage it's done to you, you can still find yourself going back, hoping for one more hit, hoping to get that version of them that you miss, the one that made you feel seen, the one that made you feel wanted. And you keep thinking that maybe this time it's going to be different. And what makes this even harder is realizing that the person you fell in love with, the one you keep trying to get back, wasn't even real. Or at least that version of them wasn't. It was a carefully constructed facade, part of the hook, and you're not actually trying to win her back. You're trying to get that feeling back, that fantasy. Letting go means grieving that illusion, and it means starting to see the trauma bond for what it really is. Not love, but addiction. A pull that feels like connection, but in actuality is based on fear, unpredictability, and unmet needs. And once you name it for what it is, you can start to loosen its grip. Let me explain this in a way that will hopefully make everything click for you. In trauma bonds, the same person who is causing you distress is also the one offering temporary relief. So your brain clings to those moments of love and affection, using it to justify or explain the harm and the abuse. And it's important to see the highs as being just as damaging as the lows, because both keep you trapped in the pattern, preventing you from breaking free and seeing things clearly. And that's the part most people miss, this neurological component. And brain scans of people in trauma bonds do show the same patterns as people with drug addiction who are going through withdrawal. That's why willpower alone often fails and just moving on doesn't work. You're literally fighting a neurological addiction. And here's what makes it even more complex for men. Narcissistic women are masters at exploiting male psychology. They know exactly how to trigger your protector instincts, how to feed your desire to fix and rescue. And all you see is this vulnerable, amazing person, and you think that she just needs a strong, supportive man to love her. You think that you can heal her through this consistency and stability. But what you don't realize is that the chaos and vulnerability are her strategies, subconscious or not, to maintain control, demand attention, protect your fragile self-image, and keep you emotionally hooked. So here are 7 things that you can do to start interrupting the reward loop and rebalancing your brain chemistry. First thing, stop calling it love and start recognizing it as addiction. When you stop lying to yourself and start realizing that you're addicted to this person and not in love with them, you can start to take the steps that you need to take to regain control, build some distance, set some boundaries, and refocus on your own healing instead of chasing this illusion. Second thing, stop trying to figure out their diagnosis and just look at the patterns. If you want to predict what's going to happen next, just pay attention to how they've been treating you over time. Third, just stop engaging. Go no contact if you can, or at least limited contact. And this is absolutely essential to stop those dopamine spikes and withdrawals. As long as you're defending, explaining, or reacting emotionally, you are feeding the cycle. So minimize interaction. This will help your brain break free from that roller coaster of highs and lows and start to reset towards stability. But be prepared. The withdrawal symptoms like cravings, anxiety, and emotional discomfort are to be expected, and it can be extremely intense. Fourth, find dopamine replacement strategies. So this isn't about chasing the same intense highs and lows. It's about breaking the addiction to those spikes altogether. You won't get the same rush, but that's the point. So you're trying to retrain your brain to find stability and satisfaction in healthier, more sustainable ways. So start looking for alternatives that stimulate dopamine more gently and more consistently. This could be intense exercise, cold exposure, engaging in creative activities, things that get you in the zone. And this will start to recalibrate your brain chemistry and your nervous system. Number five, work to regulate your nervous system. Trauma bonds dysregulate your autonomic nervous system, keeping you stuck in fight, flight, freeze, or fawn states. Some practical things that you can do include mindfulness, meditation. I personally use the Muse. You can also do somatic grounding work, breathing techniques, practice surfing the urge when you feel the pull to text them or stalk their social media accounts or reminisce. Just pause, observe the feeling, hold off on acting out for a specific amount of time. And even if you end up acting out, resisting these impulses can help you build some regulation skills. Number six, activate your prefrontal cortex. Trauma bonds engage the limbic system, and that's the emotional and survival part of the brain, while it's simultaneously suppressing the prefrontal cortex, which governs logic, impulse control, and long term thinking. So, the goal in healing is to reactivate and strengthen the prefrontal cortex so it can come back online and help regulate the emotional chaos driven by the trauma bond. So, when you feel particularly anxious or confused, engage in cognitive tasks like journaling, reading, learning something new, structured problem solving, or even puzzles and games that require focus and strategies. These activities can help ground you in logic, pulling you out of survival mode. And the more you practice redirecting your attention in these intense moments, the more you strengthen your brain's capacity to choose clarity over chaos. Think of it as waking up your prefrontal cortex after an emotional hijacking. Number seven, rewire your inner narrative. Your brain has created a distorted reward map where pain and love are intertwined. So you have to detach the positive associations that you formed around this person who manipulated and abused you. And if this isn't your first relationship like this, or if your childhood included inconsistent, neglectful, or chaotic and abusive caregiving, that pattern is wired even deeper because your nervous system learned early on that love comes with anxiety, unpredictability, or the need to earn your worth. So when someone gives you just enough affection before pulling it away, it activates old attachment wounds, and the longing, the fear, the craving that follow can feel very familiar, and it can feel like love even though it's not. Healing a trauma bond isn't just about forgetting your abuser. It's about retraining your nervous system. And if you're stuck in a trauma bond, I would strongly suggest you reach out to a therapist in your area who specializes in narcissistic abuse and trauma recovery, and consider my toxic relationship recovery programs that I linked in the description section below. If you found this information helpful, please take a moment to like, comment, and share it with someone who needs to hear this. I love hearing from you in the comment section, and I often include your insights and answer your questions here on my channel. But the most valuable reason to share your experience is that it can genuinely help someone else in a similar situation. If you want to learn more about trauma bonds, please click on the link above.